is a sad day for workers. The budget announcement this week from the Westminster Government serves to reinforce the lack of consideration, the lack of understanding, the lack of value that those in decision-making positions place on the workers in our society, and so the families, the children, the older people, and those vulnerable and in need in our society. But, colleagues, comrades, this is also a good day for workers. This is a day when we take to the streets, when we stand together, and when we state clearly back to those decision makers that we will not accept this treatment, that we will continue to stand up for the workers and the all in our society who depend on them, and we will not go down without a fight. Can I begin then by introducing Helen Quickard, who will deliver a message of welcome from Belfast Trades Council.
May Day greetings, Belfast, and to everyone who has made Northern Ireland their home. You're all welcome in the trade union family. This one's for Pamela Dooley, who established the Unison Community and Voluntary Branch. Our sector is often referred to as the third sector, but we are the neglected sector that is underfunded and undervalued by government. The community and voluntary sector is in meltdown. We work in partnership with all the statutory bodies to deliver on the programme for government. We work to address the inequalities in health, education, employment, and we're funded across all government departments. From 2016, we've been warning about the impacts of losing the European Social Fund. With over 17,000 jobs at risk, and the vital services that they provide will have a devastating impact. And the UK Shared Prosperity Fund, hailed as a replacement, was always 40 million less, meaning we will lose jobs, skills, resources in a sector that is under greater demand than ever before. Couple this with groups funded by government departments being issued 3-month contracts. We can't make plans, we can't prepare on short-term contracts. Our women's centres, who provide valuable childcare services, are in danger. Our infrastructure will be reduced. Our support for communities will be impacted. There's no job security, there's no stability. This is an injustice that we will not tolerate. Interestingly, all those funded in the private sector by government departments, the outsourcing of community services, their contracts are secure. They didn't get 3-month notices. We deserve better. We demand better. Women demand better. And workers demand better. The decisions made at Westminster and our dysfunctional Stormont are set to erode the fabric of our society. Is it the intention to decimate our public services? We are constantly working under protective notices, but these are there to protect the employer. Who protects the worker? We do! The trade union movement! But we do more than that. We are a force for social change, and we will leave no one behind. We are angry, and we have every right to be angry. This isn't a cost of living crisis. This is a cost of living emergency. Thousands of families have been plunged further into poverty, and it is women who are the shock absorbers of poverty, whose contribution to society is undervalued by government. And today, it's not only the low-paid workers, it is every worker who joins the working poor. This is not of our making. We're not responsible, but we are the ones who are suffering. We have more food banks and fast food outlets. We have government departments and councils producing brochures on hotspots, food banks, clothes swaps. We are witnessing a normalisation of poverty through the active policies at all levels of government. We are witnessing a dereliction of duty from our MLAs. This is not good enough. We deserve better. We demand better. Workers demand better. Women demand better. And let us be clear, loud and clear, for all those decision makers and politicians. never underestimate the power of the trade union movement. Solidarity!
Our next speaker needs little introduction. She is the Regional Secretary of Unison and has long been a leader in the trade union movement in the drive for peace and reconciliation, equality, human rights and the rights of workers. She has long been an inspiration to me and to many of you in the promotion of women in the movement and the fight for the most vulnerable workers in our society. Colleagues, Patricia McKeown.
Brothers and sisters, comrades, solidarity from Unison. We're here at a May Day without two of our fallen heroes. We send love to Pamela Dooley and love to Harry Hamilton, who have led us for years. But we have other heroes here. We have a big message of solidarity for all the striking workers across the north, for all the workers on this island, a special message of solidarity for workers and their unions in Colombia, in Cuba, and in the occupied territories of Palestine and apartheid Israel. And I want a special shout out for the health workers entering their 5th month of industrial action. And they have pledged to keep the struggle up. And we suspect that very soon they will be joined by thousands of support workers in education in the teeth of that budget. I spent 3 days last week in the company of British Prime Ministers, Irish Taoiseachs, US Presidents, past and present. Now, it was absolutely right and fitting that we celebrate the 25th anniversary of our peace agreement, a peace agreement we took to the streets to fight for and took to the streets to support. But a voice was missing. The workers' voice, the voice of the trade union movement, the voice of the people left behind for the last 25 years was not heard and needs to be heard now. I listened to the Secretary of State and a bleeding heart pledge undying support for our peace agreement, and a few days later slash the heart out of our budget. There is a poster here from my union that says the UK government celebrates 25 years of the Good Friday Agreement by slicing the Northern Ireland budget, making people poorer, keeping children hungry, wrecking health and education and abandoning communities. George Mitchell said all those years ago that the peace would be built here by ordinary men and women taking small steps every day. Well, the men and women of our movement have taken big steps for 25 years. On the last health strike, just a few weeks ago, hundreds of workers from East Belfast got on buses and travelled to the Royal Victoria Hospital in West Belfast. Workers did the same thing across the north, converging in South Belfast on the City Hospital and in North Belfast on the Mater Hospital. In a city that still has 60 separation walls, where the people are kept divided, the workers proved that they will remain united. If that's not peace building, I don't know what is. So I will finish with a very clear message to Chris Heaton Harris. The Irish Trade Union movement are nobody's useful fools. You have done damage to the people of Northern Ireland. You are trying to punish us. And when people do that to us, we fight back. And one final message. Jeffrey, you've stood on our picket lines in the past. Our people want to go back to work, but they can't do that until you go back to work.
Thank you, Patricia. Our next speaker is Carmel Gates. Following years of high-profile activity in the movement, Carmel became General Secretary of NIPSA in June 2021 and is now the voice for more than 40,000 members across the public and civil services.
Comrades, sisters and brothers, it's an absolute privilege to be here. We were here 3 days ago, many of the same faces as you listened to me then. I absolutely make no apology for repeating the points that I made then. But what I want to say before I do that is, 12 months ago when we were standing here, some of us were celebrating victories that we'd had with our members in battle and in struggle. And we were celebrating those victories, and there was many of us who did, small victories here and there. But around this time last year, things changed. And the signal of the portent of change that happened around 12 months ago was when P&O Ferries sacked 800 workers, and the political class sat back, the courts sat back, allowed that to happen and did nothing. And what that signalled, and what we have been seeing ever since, is the naked face of capitalism, the naked greed of capitalism that has allowed energy companies and others to gouge profits out of the pockets of ordinary working people and basically starve workers by causing inflation in the economy and driving children and everybody into poverty. And that has been the basis of what has been driving the political class in Britain ever since, the naked face of capitalism. And comrades, it is the change that has happened since then has also taken place in our movement, because workers are now standing on their feet and they are opposing what is taking place. Workers in Britain and in Ireland have said, enough is enough. Enough of your naked greed. The Trust Quartine Coalition showed it at its most powerful. And we are saying we are standing back and we are fighting back. And workers are now saying enough is enough. Patricia has mentioned the budget that has been imposed by the Secretary of State. That budget is an economic sanction, a political sanction on the political parties to try and force them back into power. We know, you know, and I know it will do them no damage. But the people who will be damaged by this economic sanction is the working class. It's us, it's our communities, and it's everything that we hold dear. Now, we've been on the picket lines fighting for pay, and we have been united on the picket lines fighting for pay. We saw in February the tremendous strike by health workers and education workers standing together. During the week, we saw teachers and civil servants standing together, and we're fighting for our members and fighting for pay. But comrades, there's a bigger battle now, because this and the battle the trade unions must lead, and we must do so with unity and together, is to fight to defend the very fabric of our society, because the cuts that are coming our way are cuts to our communities, to the community and voluntary sector, to everything that is basically keeping working class communities together. And children are now starving. They're going to school hungry, they're going to bed hungry. People can no longer afford to feed their families. I know workers who would want to come here today to this demonstration to hear Mick Lynch and others, but who can't afford the fare. They can't afford to travel. And that's the society we now live in the 5th richest economy in the world. It's an absolute disgrace. So comrades, We need to stand strong. Our fight has to be for our members and for pay. But the fight that we're now in is defence of our communities. Young people are flocking to our movement now. And for a long while, we were wondering where they were. They're now back. And the reason they're back is they see trade unions standing up. They now know what trade unions are again. They're flocking to us and they're joining the fight. And we should welcome all the young people. We're fighting for their future. And we're fighting for their services and their community and their job. Comrades, I'm going to finish on this point. My union believes that we need a socialist economy. We need an economy that is... We need an economy that protects our class, working class people, because the economy we currently in is run for profit and greed. But in the meantime, in the fight for a socialist economy, we have to fight the battles that are in front of us. And we have to ensure, because we're heading into an election time, we're heading into a time when there's potential increase in sectarianism as the various parties fight for votes and other things. We're also heading into a time when the voice of the far right can get an echo in desperation. And we need to fight against those evils of sectarianism, racism, and the things that divide us. And we need to fight. And we need to fight for the unity of our movement. And I'll finish on this slogan, comrades. The workers united will never be defeated.
Thank you, Carmel. And before I introduce our next speaker, I would just like to put in a word for the teaching profession while I've got the microphone. On Wednesday past, this same area in front of this platform was awash with the flags of 5 teaching unions, all of the unions on the Northern Ireland Teachers' Council, as for the first time we stood together in solidarity to send a message for the teaching profession. For NAHT, it was their first ever day of strike action. For UTU, it was their first ever full day of strike action. And for us collectively, it was the first time that we had fully coordinated strike action and stood together to say we are all teachers, we support each other, and enough is enough. Many stepped outside their comfort zone. They showed courage and determination, and I commend them for that. And I deliver greetings and solidarity to all of our comrades across the sectors who stood with us on Wednesday, or who are taking action in their own workplaces over the coming weeks. And I also wanted to actually reference the fact that it was interesting then that I heard on the news that the teaching unions in England have decided to stand together. So there are things that they can learn from looking over here. Our dispute, like that of many of you, relates to the completely unacceptable levels of pay which those in authority feel our work is worth. Following the settlement made to Scottish teachers, we are now on average worth a third less per year than our counterparts straight across the water. Those in other jurisdictions are already better paid, have settled, or are at least round a table with something to consider. We in Northern Ireland have none of those things. Out of respect for our members, we get round the table with nothing to discuss, nothing to consider, nothing offered. The message coming out to our teachers, our contribution to society is worth nothing. The ultimate insult to add to the injury already suffered. And I said that on Wednesday, and actually on Wednesday I thought it was the ultimate insult. The budget announcement on Thursday proved me wrong on that one. Inflation-adjusted figures show a cut of over 10% for the education budget, and if anything is offered from across the water to address pay, it'll be used to pay our debt. We cannot run a decent education system on this funding. We cannot run a decent education system with poorly paid staff. We cannot deliver for our children. For the worst is being suffered. by our children. We hear countless platitudes about the plight of the most vulnerable, about protecting the children in our society, but that is exactly where the first swathe of cuts has landed. The Engage programme, gone. Healthy Happy Minds programme, gone. The funding for holiday hunger, gone. The Extended Schools programme, gone. Cycling proficiency, gone. School crossing patrol funding, gone. And now another 10% of our budget, gone. And they haven't even started yet. The powers that be have us in their sights, and you can be assured that, as we've already seen, even our most vulnerable and most deserving children have no one left to fight for them but us. In recent weeks, as Patricia referenced, we've had the great and the good gathered here in this city, reflecting on the past 25 years in our society and making plans for building for the future. Well, I have news for them. Without functioning schools, there is no future. Without our children having access to a proper education, there is no future. Without our teachers and the invaluable support staff who stand alongside them on a daily basis, there is no future. We are holding this system together, we are delivering for our children, and we are bearing the brunt of the poor decision making and skewed priorities of others. The children are our future, and we are their future. We must be recognised, we must be valued, and we must be paid fairly in order to deliver for them. This is what brought our members out, and together this is what we must achieve. Workers demand better, education demands better. Thank you. Our next speaker is Susan Fitzgerald, Regional Coordinating Officer for Unite the Union. Oh my goodness, she's the new Regional Secretary. Here for Susan. Susan is a strong, and I have cleared this with her, because I'm never sure, but dare I say, feisty advocate for her members, and became a familiar face and voice in the media to many of us when standing alongside workers in very high-profile media campaigns. Delighted to hear from her, the Regional Secretary, Susan Fitzgerald.
I want to wish everyone here a happy International Workers' Day. Today is a day to register the fact that our class, the working class, the only progressive class in our society, has to step decisively back into the arena of struggle, and that struggle is intensifying. While workers are lectured to by economists and told to just give it up and accept being poor, corporate profits have soared by an historic 89%. The experience of the past number of years and the absolute scourge of greed, inflation and price gouging by the rich means that our backs are to the wall and doing nothing is just not an option. So it's no surprise that we have and we are seeing a sustained wave of militant strike action, powerful mobilisations by the heavy battalions of the working class from the NHS, transport, communication, local authorities, civil servants, education and so many other groups. And in the private sector too, we have seen one angry strike after another, and there's more to come. In my union in Northern Ireland alone, we have ballots coming in on a daily basis. We have current ballots in Glanbia, in Survitec, in Creative Composites, in Langford Lodge, in 3M, in MM, and in many more places besides. have mainly, understandably, seen strikes to date on the issue of pay, but I think it's our collective experience that many, if not all, of the strikes we have had are also reflective of the anger at the often dehumanising and belittling goings-on at work. We have had workers denied the right to use the bathroom. We've had workers face sexual harassment, workers sacked for going through the menopause, and no one should be blind to the blatant and ongoing discrimination of our trans members and the abuse of migrant workers. But the Unite banner for May Day today is correct. It says May Day is Workers' Day, and if we fight, we can win. Irrespective of the issue, we can win. And we have had some outstanding wins that have made us all walk taller, all feel prouder. But it's also a fact that when we fight, they fight back. And what we're seeing is the increased deployment of union-busting tactics, both subtle and aggressive. And this means keeping unions off-site. It means sacking reps. It means effective de-recognition and frustrating recognition campaigns like we're experiencing at Seagate in the Northwest. By the way, Seagate is a company that for 30 years said there'd never be a union on their site. There's a union there now, and they're here today with their banner. Seagate presently are demanding an 8% cut from some of their workers. And what they've said, they've actually implemented it. This is a section not yet unionised. And if you don't agree to this, we've seen the paperwork, they euphemistically suggest a separation of employment. That's fancy words from the bosses, but actually what it brings to mind is the words of Joe Hill, a peerless union organiser and martyr of our movement, who said, when the world comes for your children with the knives out, it's your job to stand in the way. And that's our job as a trade union movement. And it's not easy. The challenges we face are not easy, they're not light, they're onerous, they're heavy. But we don't have the option to avoid a fight because we're already in it. And what that means for all of our organisations is we have to find the funds. We have to find the union organisers. We have to find and recruit the reps in multiples of what we currently have. And we can't let anti-union laws block our path or wait for politicians to get their act together, because the politicians essentially are not on our side. They desire the status quo. The status quo does not serve working class people. For many, hundreds of thousands of our people and our public services, we are now in the fight of our lives. And to finish, I'm just looking at the crowd here today, and I'm reminded of a speech by Eleanor Marx, the trailblazing socialist and trade unionist from the turn of the last century. She's also actually a founding member of our sister union, the GMB. Eleanor Marx was part of the struggle for the 8-hour day. She was a women's rights campaigner, democratic rights, workers' rights. And in a speech on May Day, she said, I can remember when we came in handfuls of a few dozen to Hyde Park to demand an 8 hours bill, but the dozens have grown to hundreds, to thousands, until we have this magnificent demonstration that fills the park today. This is not the end, but only the beginning of the struggle. And the same goes for us today, comrades. Happy May Day.
Susan, Regional Secretary. And now to our keynote speaker for the day. You don't have to hear my bit, say anyway because I took the time to write it down. Mick Lynch has served as the General Secretary of RMT since May 2021. He has become an inspiration to many of us in our own struggles with his capacity to cut through the trivial and nonsensical questioning of the media and instead lay out with wisdom and clarity the just cause of his members for decent pay and working conditions. He will no doubt in the present context forgive me for attributing his determination, his way with words, his tenacity and his wit to his Irish heritage. Colleagues, comrades, it's a pleasure and a privilege to invite Mick Lynch to address you today.
Well, thank you very much. The welcome we've had in Belfast has been tremendous, and it's great to be home. And I'm only up here in the interest of gender balance, and what can you say after these four magnificent women that have led the way and are leading our movement here, but women are leading the movement over in Britain as well. And of course we've got your own Pat Cullen leading the charge, taking on this Tory government and trying to get social justice for our workers and our fellow comrades over there and over here. And what I'm here for is to give you May Day greetings from the British trade union movement, of which I'm a part, and give my tribute to the Irish Congress and to thank them for inviting me over here. I'll be in Dublin next week as well at the Robert Tressel Festival. I don't know if I'll understand them down there. I can understand you a lot better, but you know what it's like. But you've done tremendous work. The trade unionists on this island are the salt of the earth, and they've kept our movement going through thick and thin, for all the struggles that you've had, the struggles for peace and justice and democracy. It's been the trade unions that have kept our spirits alive, that have kept this movement going, bringing all of our people together, no matter what their heritage, no matter what their background. And we have to keep doing it, because we know, as been said, the ultra-right are going to exploit division. They're seeking to do it in the south. They're seeking to do it up here. They're seeking to do it in England. Open Nazis are trying to divide our people one from another. And these Tories, these oligarchs as they should be called, some of the richest people in our society, are trying to blame some of the poorest people in the world for the problems over here. And we cannot allow that to happen. And we cannot allow any of that to grow in our working class communities, no matter where you're from and what you believe. We cannot allow that division. And a year ago, when we were getting our strikes going along with the CWU in this wave of action that we've experienced in Britain, they were telling me on the telly and on the airwaves, why should you get a pay rise, your members? They're paid this, and nurses are paid that, and doctors are paid this, and health workers are getting that. And I said, they should all be getting a pay rise. The problem is, we're too poor. That is the problem in our society. We're being exploited. And look what happens. We get barristers on strike. A lot of people in London thought there'd be no coffee, and it turned out they were barristers with wigs on their heads. We had barristers out the gate. We've got professional people out the gate. We've got doctors. We'll soon have consultants perhaps joining these struggles. The nurses of Britain are on the move. Started over here, by the way. The nurses struggle started in this part of the world. So you're leading the way that way as well. And what it shows to me, that our values are back on the agenda, the values of the trade union movement, the values of the labour movement, the values of the people who we follow in the footsteps of, Connolly and Larkin and all the other heroes of our movement. And when push comes to shove, they can dress it up whatever way they want. They can blame it on the pandemic. They can blame it on the economy. Now they're blaming it on the war in Eastern Europe. What is to blame is capitalism, exploitation. the deliberate creation of poverty so that they can enrich themselves. And we've got to stand up to that. And what we've managed to do in the last year is cut through that argument that we're being sold piffle. And next week, when we celebrate the life of Robert Noon and Robert Tressel and the legacy of the Ragged Trousered Philanthropist, we'll be going back to celebrate those lessons that he taught us in that book. And his message he put in the hands of his character, Frank Owen, was, they said to him, "What is socialism?" And he said, "Socialism is the abolition of poverty." And that's what we got to keep at the front of our mind. So I want to give a shout out to all of you that have taken part in action. I've got so many letters here, I think I'm having me alphabet soup again. To the UTU that have taken this action, the PCS Unite, INTO, the GMB, NIPSA, NASUWT, NAHT Unison, and of course, I want to pay tribute to the workers over in Derry Seagate that are struggling for recognition. We must all back them. The entire movement must back them. And we must stand together so that we win that recognition. And then we move on to organising every corner of this society and every corner of Britain, that the trade union movement is in every county, every city, every town, every village. And that is our task, to build a labour movement that reflects all of our society, no matter what your background is. We've been campaigning on Enough is Enough throughout Britain, in Scotland, Wales, all of the parts of England. And we've been going into the churches, we've been going into the temples, the mosques, the synagogues, bringing everyone together. And that's our task, to build a labour movement that reflects all of our working class people and brings them together behind our values and not allow others to exploit them and create that division. We must celebrate our diversity. Diversity is wonderful, but solidarity and unity is powerful, and that's what we got to build. We build a world based on mutual respect. We build a world based on common values, and the task in front of us is an historic one, I believe, at this time as trade unionists, because I can sense it everywhere I go. The people in Ireland, the people in Britain, we've seen the people in France and Spain and Italy, they are ready for change. They are ready for a different kind of society. They want a fair society. They want an equal society. They want a world where they can live in decent standards of living, and they want a future for their children that's based on preserving our planet that we all rely on, preserving our society and living in a world of peace and justice. These are the best values of our movement, and we've got to make sure while we're fighting these battles on pay and conditions that we keep our eyes on the prize, because the task in front of us as trade unionists, as socialists, is to build a better world for all of us. That's what our forebears gave us the task of doing, and we've got to commit ourselves from this meeting going forward, all the other meetings. Build your union, build our movement, let's change this society, let's do the job for our people and create a better world for all. Thank you very much. Solidarity. Victory to the workers.